you talk about sort of what your objective is today and yesterday?
Yeah, so yesterday, main priority is to really catch the heel of the fire in this western flank. We didn't want the fire to creep up into the San Francisco Peaks. If it had creeped up into the San Francisco Peaks, we're looking at a long-term fire with a lot more resource commitment. So fortunately, even with the winds we had yesterday, we were able to corral it. And right now we're just in a holding pattern, making sure we don't let any embers get across the line and reinitiate another chase.
How did you guys learn of this spot fire yesterday? And can you talk about just, what is the response to it?
Yeah, so we knew that there was some slop over, was one of the terminologies we use. It's bigger than a spot, basically. It's a large spot, so we called it a slop over. It's on the wrong side of the holding feature that we were hoping to utilize. We knew it was there from the night before. We could see the glow up there on the hill, and our initial attack, response was good. It was great, but there was a lot of fire everywhere, and we were really focused on the subdivisions and trying to get folks out, so we didn't have anybody up on the hill to really get after it the first night. So yesterday morning, first thing in the morning, we knew it was here, so we decided to bring some dozers in here and move as much earth as we needed to corral it, knowing that it's a priority for this fire. And we were successful with that so far, and fingers crossed through this wind event today and tomorrow, it'll stay within the lines.
And we've all heard about the winds that are expected to worsen tomorrow. How much of an obstacle has it been for firefighters, and especially these spot fires that are jumping out?
Well, this fire is 100% a wind-driven fire. And most of the fires we get in northern Arizona are wind-driven fires. Typically, we catch the fires after the wind dies down, once the wind event goes away. In the springtime, sometimes we get 5, 6, 7-day wind events, and that's what we're seeing here. Unfortunately, it was pretty devastating to the community that it burned through. The head of the fire now is way out in the middle of nowhere, which is good for us. And as firefighters, it gives us a little more wiggle room to maneuver, and gives us some more time to plan and get resources in where they need to be. But wind is a huge factor in all the fires that I've dealt with. And then we did keep topography out of this one with the San Francisco Peaks. We kept it off of there, which would be another big factor.
And how long have you been doing firefighting? Can you compare this fire to any other ones that you've been on?
This is my 28th fire season. I was on the original Schultz fire on this piece of ground. This was my division back in whenever that was, 2010. Very familiar with this piece of ground. And, it's just a typical wind-driven fire. We have a lot of dry fuels on the ground, and when there's a start that happens on a windy day, they generally take off, and it's hard to catch them.
Can you talk to us about how hard crews are working up here? Just kind of give the public an idea of what's going on up here.
Yeah, so, the environment is not very friendly. It was blowing 70 miles an hour. Rocks were hitting everybody in the face. It was very smoky, and we're working directly in the heat. These guys are working incredibly hard. They know the value's at risk. This is their community. They're fully aware of what's going to happen if the fire goes through homes. So knowing that, everybody's working very diligently and very hard to do everything we can to corral the fire and try to herd it around the structures and around the subdivisions as best we can. But boy, this one, it beat us to the punch. It got to the subdivision very quickly, and there just wasn't much we could do other than evacuate, which we did very well and effectively as we could. I think it went much better than it did on the first Schultz fire. I don't know what else to say. It was just, it's a tough thing to deal with, and we did the best we can in managing the chaos.
Talk about whether, if there's any threats or specific threats to the communities right now. The firefighters feel like they've got the most active parts of the fire.
As long as there's heat on the ground, there's always a risk, but we're working very hard to get rid of that heat right now, especially close to the subdivisions. All our resources are working very diligently around the subdivisions to make sure that the heat's going away fast. And actually, the wind helps out with that. You can notice the stump holes that have been burning. Yesterday, they were much more intense. Today, they're almost gone because the wind is really making those burn down quickly. So that's actually helping our effort within our containment lines. Everything that's outside of our containment lines, obviously the wind is a factor. It's making our lives a little more difficult. But, back to the reality is a rekindle is a reality. It could happen. We hope it doesn't happen. We're being very diligent with day and night resources on this fire all the time to make sure that doesn't happen. Once we feel safe, that threat is gone, we'll get folks back in here and they can check on their homes. But until that threat's gone, we're just not going to let anybody in here because of that.
Did you guys learn anything last night with the infrared flights, or is that even a question for you? Did you find new spots, new areas from that flight?
When you have a wind-driven fire, you really don't know where the main fire is because it's hidden by the smoke. It's hidden by the column. So yeah, infrared is always very valuable for us. It gives us a really good idea where the perimeter was at that moment in time. That way we can plan on where to put resources the next day. But we also know that there's a time lag there, so that fire always moves. It's a very dynamic environment. It doesn't just sit. It's not static. So we know that over a few hours the fire's actually going to move quite a ways. But it gives us a good idea where it was, at midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning when the airplane flies over and snaps that image for us.
And yesterday, the Weather Service, Frank Flagstaff was talking about there could be a few days to go with fires. What are we talking about in terms of potential acreage, knowing it's moving into sort of those less populated areas and
Yeah.
fuel?
It's moving into less populated areas. It's also moving out of the heavier fuel beds. It's transitioning into a more juniper grassland country, and then beyond that is it's grass and maybe even bare dirt. So it wouldn't surprise me if this fire makes it all the way out into that country where it slows itself because there's just less fuel to burn. That's kind of the unique thing about the Coconino and the plateau that we're on, is we have a lot of different fire environments that we're in. It started in Ponderosa Pine, now it's moved into the juniper, and then it's going to move into the grassland and maybe just bare dirt out there in the Painted Desert. I think some of the fires actually made it out that far, but I'm not positive because I'm on the other end of the fire.
Anything else that sticks out to you about this fire? The crews that are working it, are they mostly local? Does that just give folks a different feeling about sort of protecting the place they live?
There's a lot of locals on this fire, and a lot of the folks that are on this fire happen to be on the Schultz fire, which is almost in the same footprint. So yeah, there's a lot of similarities. There's a lot of memory there. Yeah, it's impactful to us too. It is our community that we're actually working in, and it's not fun fighting a fire anywhere where homes burn, but when it's your own community, it just makes it that much harder. Yeah.
One more time with saying and spelling your name, if you don't.
Yeah, Preston Mercer, Preston, last name Mercer.
And who you're with.
Coconino National Forest, and my position is Fire Management Specialist in the Flagstaff Ranger District.
Thank you.